part 2, the first topic for part 2 of the book is foreground, middle ground, and background. Problem: your music has a feeling of flatness. Basically, it's not 3D enough. As in, it doesn't have enough depth or stereo image, or just all together very, very one-dimensional. And a lot of the music that inspire us would not have this kind of problem. Simple reason for that is because when the music is flat, it's no-brainer. Typically, it's boring. Typically, it's not that exciting to listen to. So the book suggests a couple solutions to solve this problem. I found the easiest one is just to picture your music like a photo. Focus. Oh my gosh, is it gonna focus? Oh, getting there. Like this picture, think of these two people. They are on the foreground, and then in the middle ground you have trees, and then in the background you have a mountain. So always think your music as if you are doing a painting or a photograph. Personally, I can see music visually in my head. I know some people, they can taste music. I cannot taste the music, but I can feel the temperature of the music. I don't know why. I feel that ever since I was a kid. I can tell certain music, it just makes me feel really warm. For example, Christmas music makes me feel really warm inside. Latin music makes me feel warm, but and reggae music makes me feel really warm, but they are different type of warmth. This is gonna get really heady, but it's important. Just personal preference, I prefer the Christmas type of warmth. I'm not saying I don't like Latin music, because the technicality of Latin music is very complex. So that's that. You guys know I love complex music. It's just when it comes to warmth, it's a very sensitive temperature for me. I am a colder climate person. Maybe it has a lot to do with the fact that I grew up in Vancouver, even though it's not that cold compared to Toronto or Boston. I really hope that makes sense. And when I went to Iceland the first time, I think I went during the US Thanksgiving, so it's November. Yeah, it's during November. It was cold in Iceland. I didn't mind that much because that type of cold climates to me is really refreshing. I think people who like the colder climates could relate to. I'm not saying minus 20 degrees, because that's just brutal with the wind chill, and it's just like, no, I don't think anyone would enjoy that. Mostly I'm talking about between 3 degrees to 20. I think that range is what I prefer. So when I make music or when I consume music, I tend to listen to music in that kind of range, temperature wise. Again, throughout our journey together, I will explain more on how I experience music. Because, I really find that more people communicate with each other about how they consume music will spike each other's creativity. I would do the harmony after all these temperature feeling, the shape process. I do that on the second stage. Yeah, it's not about right or wrong. It's just how one consume music. So yeah, how do you guys experience music? Do you guys experience music like different temperature when you feel the music in a different, or do you taste music? Do you see music in shapes? Or what else could be there? Oh, color, that's a big one. Sometimes I see color, but it's mostly the temperature of the music and the shape. Color is interesting because sometimes I can see like, oh, the music is very smoky. Like, especially with 7 chords, I don't know why, it just like it has that smoky shin to it. 7 chords, amazing. So yeah, don't overthink it. Just always keep that in mind. A foreground, a middle ground, a background. Because with that kind of awareness, you can start to see what's around it. What's around your background, what's around your middle ground, what's around your foreground. You can start play with the stereo image, and that obviously has a lot to do with mixing, but without the composition stage, there's no mixing. Even though as an electronic music producer, you basically mix as you go, you still have to have this kind of awareness. I mean, you don't have to, but it will help. It will propel the speed of making music, and it will definitely enhance your music making progress. Okay, so the book also talk about foreground subjects are commonly the subjects of the composition. They're often in focus, and we can see the complexity and fine detail. The background, on the other hand, contains objects in the far distance. We recognize them, but they might be blurry or otherwise less rich in detail. The middle ground contains everything else. Objects which are generally not the primary focus of our attention, but which are closer than those in the background. So pretty straightforward. I'm sure you guys understand. Okay, another way we can look at it is sound can be made to seem closer to the listener by making them louder or brighter, as in increase high frequency content in comparison to other sound. Or you can make it drier. So for example, I'll use vocal as the example. If you put a lot of reverb on the vocal, what is it gonna sound like? It's gonna sound like far away, right? But if you put, I mean, it's more complicated than that. I just make it really simple. Okay, so if you make it less reverb, then it will seem more in your face. Although it can be achieved, like you can put a lot of reverb and then you compress it and then you do like, that's another topic, but you guys know what I mean. So just think more wet, it's more far away, more dry, drier, it's more in your face. Okay? So more tips on how to make. Okay, I don't know. Okay, it just stopped recording in the middle of my explanation. This is so annoying. I don't know where I left off, so I'm just gonna keep going. Another really good technique to make musical elements more in focus is by for example, we usually want the voice to be the most important element, especially in pop music or in a lot of music, when you want the vocal to be the focal point, the center of the attention. You can. The vocal melody is doubled note by note by a synth line that plays an octave higher. I love this technique. This is very, very effective, and I think it's very tasteful. Don't overuse it, obviously, like don't just, you know, like moderation, and use your ear. Always use your ear. We tend to hear things as being in the foreground if they're high, loud, fast, or subject to a rapid rate of change. For example, the drum groove of a song is often quite loud in comparison to the rest of the mix, but because it's also generally consistent and unvarying in relation to the other voices, we're unable to place it in its appropriate place in the texture, the middle ground or background. When a drum fill happens, however, the sudden change in textural density and complexity causes us to switch our focus to the drum. They temporarily jump to the foreground. So when writing music, try to think about where each element should reside on this three-layered depth chart of foreground, middle ground, and background. And also what you guys can do is draw. I kid you not, sometimes I would, because I love going to modern art museum, because I love looking at modern art. Some people might think they are a joke. To be completely frank, I do think some pieces are quite questionable. However, I admire that courage to make that piece into an actual piece. Okay, I feel like since we've been talking for a while now, I'll tell you these little things. When you look at especially a modern art piece, when you don't understand what is the thing is doing, read the description. Like, I found a lot of the joy that I get from going to modern art museum is from reading the description. Like, you really see how they make sense of the piece. Yeah, I will leave you guys on that note. It's just brilliant, you know, like it's so fascinating the way people think of art and how they approach it. Again, I am not disrespecting it at all. I would say I'm a fan. Some people might not like it, which I absolutely get it. Why? It's just I found the joy from them. Okay. So why I am talking about modern art? Number one, I think if you are living in a city, it's quite easy, I believe, to find an art gallery, a good one. Please go to a good one. So you are constantly submerged in the environment of beautiful things, and that will trigger your sensory of look at things in a different perspective. It's just basically like traveling to another country without you actually leaving your country, because artists from different background or different country or different upbringing, they see the world differently. It makes sense. It would not make sense that they don't. So just keep that in mind. Keep an open-minded perspective when you see other people's art. I'm going to bring out this example of this white painting. I laugh because I already can hear some people will say like, oh no, not the white painting. There are a lot of the white painting, by the way. I'm just like saying it in a very general term. On the surface, it looks like just a piece of white painting, right? Actually, no. If you pay enough attention to that piece, you will see the surface has different texture to it. It looks like white, it's correct, but the texture of the piece is golden. Try to make that surface your foreground music. You might say how? That's completely up to you. Like, this is where you shine as a musician, as a creator. Whatever that texture speaks to you, try to translate it into a musical form. Yeah, it's totally up to you. I think it's super exciting because no one can tell you if you're doing it wrong or right, because it's completely up to you. Like, this is the best, like, freedom, guys, like freedom. As long as you can make it sound brilliant, then you did it. You know what I mean? Like, because I personally do not like rules. I love learning the rules so I can break them, but I love having the freedom to make art. Like, such a blessing. Okay, so after the first layer of the texture that make you feel like, I mean, it is white. Try to pay more attention on the outer rim of the painting. I found that different artists they use different technique to create that subtle halo around the edges. And when I see that painting, I hear sound from that kind of light, or the density of the light, or the tone of the light. Color to me has a sound. So for me to look at a painting or any type of visual or sculpture, I hear sounds. That's why I love going to galleries. And I use that in my creative work. So there you go. So the rim could be your middle ground. And then the background, I'm trying to think of one of the pieces, one of the white pieces that I've seen. Ah, I know. I forgot the artist's name, but the base of the painting, it's another layer. I remember that person used rock and carbox and I forgot a couple more material, and he blends all the material together to create the base for the painting. And I thought it's beautiful. It's just so chic. The whole thing is very minimalistic, but I hear a music. Just by telling you guys, like, I just feel that chill. It's definitely a soundscape, more ambient piece, which you guys know I love. So try that. Go look at paintings. Modern art paintings are the best ones. The ones that usually get you have a certain emotion, doesn't matter, it's like, huh? Or like, what? Or just like any type of emotion triggers. Pay more attention to it. It's trying to say something, like you're connecting with the pieces. So just let it come through your heart. Super, super heady. I warned you. Okay, so there's last technique that the book is suggesting. It's an example of what a list of song parts for a minimal techno track might look like if divided into foreground, middle ground, and background. So for foreground, pitch shift spoken text or metal clang interruptions. Middle ground, synth bleeps, synth marimba chords, acid bass line. Background, drums, sub-bass. Each element in the list is followed by a decisions about musical parameters, which will help to reinforce the selected depth. The rates of change in the middle ground and background elements is kept to a minimum, while foreground elements are allowed more freedom of motion. Again, I can't read the entire book to you guys because of the copyright, I think. Plus, just out of respect to Dennis, the author, I should not do that. But it's just, I really want to tell you guys, the book has a lot of useful information. So if you like the material that I've been telling you guys should really get the book. Like, I don't know why I'm promoting the book. I'm not even getting commission. You want to start first, right? The bass?